I started working night security at St. Mary's Medical Center in Albuquerque in the fall of 2019. It wasn't my dream job. I'd been laid off from construction work earlier that year. And bills don't wait, but it seemed easy enough. Walk the halls, check the cameras, keep an eye on the parking lot. The hospital wasn't huge. 3 main floors, a basement, and a separate wing that had been closed down years earlier after budget cuts. During the day, it was busy, patients, nurses, visitors constantly moving, but at night, it felt like a completely different place. The bright lights couldn't hide the silence. The air smelled of antiseptic and something heavier, like old dust that clung to the closed-off areas. Most nights my shift was uneventful. I'd do my rounds, grab coffee from the vending machine, and sit in the security office watching grainy cameras. Every so often an ER patient would come in causing a scene, but the nurses usually handled it before I even got there. But there was one place I hated checking, the East Wing. The East Wing was shut down back in 2012. They said it was too expensive to keep up, that new construction elsewhere made it obsolete. But the real reason, whispered among staff, was that too many people had died there. The ICU used to be in that wing, and after a particularly bad flu season it became known as the Death Hall, even though it was officially sealed. My rounds required me to walk past the double doors at the end of the main corridor. They were chained shut with a heavy padlock, but every time I passed by I felt watched, like something on the other side was aware of me. The first couple of weeks I brushed it off. Just nerves. Big empty hospitals at night are naturally creepy, but then small things started happening. One night around 2 a.m., I was sitting in the office flipping through cameras when I saw movement on one of the monitors. Camera 14, the East Wing hallway. That wasn't possible. The feed showed the double doors locked, still chained, but behind them, in the dim light spilling from the emergency exit sign, a shadow moved across the hall. I leaned closer, thinking maybe it was a glitch. But no, the shadow had form. A person. Tall, walking slowly, like they were pacing. My heart thudded in my chest. I checked the log. Nobody was authorized to be in there. Nobody even had the keys. I stared at the monitor until my eyes hurt, but the figure never came closer. Never faced the camera, just paced. I told myself it was a recording loop, some technical issue. But when I blinked, the figure was gone. The next night, the same thing happened. Only this time, the shadow stopped and turned. It faced the camera directly, and though I couldn't see a face, I swear it was looking straight at me. The night after I saw the figure look into the camera, I came into work already on edge. I told myself I'd imagined it, that after too much coffee and too many hours staring at screens, my mind was playing tricks on me. But the unease followed me through every hallway. That night I made my rounds like usual. ER, lobby, cafeteria, the dimly lit parking lot. Everything was normal, until I came to the corridor with the East Wing doors. I slowed down. My flashlight beam swept over the chained double doors, catching on the closed "Do Not Enter" sign taped across them. The padlock was still in place, rusted from years of neglect. But something was different. A chair, the kind used in patient rooms, sat in the middle of the hall, pushed up against the doors. I froze, staring at it. It hadn't been there the night before. I was sure of it. I wrote it down in my log, trying to convince myself it was just housekeeping moving things around. But a part of me knew better. Later that shift, I returned to the security office and flipped through the cameras again. My eyes locked on camera 14. The chair was gone. I sat there for a full minute, heart racing, waiting for it to reappear. And then at the very bottom of the frame, I saw it. The chair was now inside the East Wing hallway, past the chained doors, but the chains hadn't been touched. I pushed back from the desk, every hair on my arm standing up. I didn't want to look anymore. I didn't want to see what might move next, but I couldn't pull myself away. Then movement. That same tall figure appeared again, only this time he wasn't pacing. He was sitting in the chair, perfectly still, facing the camera. I couldn't see his features. The feed was too grainy, the light too dim, but the shape of his head, his shoulders, the way he sat, straight-backed, almost rigid, burned itself into my mind. Suddenly, the monitor flickered. For less than a second, the screen cut to black. When the feed returned, the chair was empty. That was enough for me. I switched the monitor off, sat back in my chair, and tried to steady my breathing. But I couldn't shake the thought. If nobody had access to that wing, how had the chair moved? and what had been sitting in it. The next day, I brought it up casually to one of the nurses I was friendly with, Jessica. She gave me a strange look. "You've seen him too, huh?" she said quietly. My stomach dropped. "Seen who?" She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "People call him the Pacer. Staff used to swear they'd see a tall man walking back and forth in the ICU halls, even after the patients were moved out. No one knows who he is. Some say he was a patient. Some say he was a doctor. All I know is if you see him looking at you, don't go near the East Wing." I laughed it off in the moment, but inside I was rattled. That night, when the hospital quieted down, I made myself a promise. I'd check the East Wing doors myself. Not on the monitors, not secondhand. I needed to see it with my own eyes. So just past 3 a.m., I walked down that corridor again, flashlight in hand. Daisy's warning about not going near echoing in my head. The doors stood there, chained and locked, silent. I got closer. My beam caught on the metal, gleaming dully in the dark, and that's when I heard it. A faint tap, tap, tap from the other side of the doors. Like footsteps. Pacing. I stood frozen, my breath fogging in the cold air. The sound went on for maybe 30 seconds, then stopped. The silence after was worse. And then, clear as day, someone whispered my name. "Michael." I stumbled back, nearly dropping the flashlight. My hands shook so badly I could barely hold it steady. The whisper had come from the other side of the locked doors. But nobody in this hospital knew I was there, nobody but me. After hearing my name whispered through the locked East Wing doors, I didn't sleep the next day. I replayed it in my head over and over, trying to convince myself it was exhaustion, or maybe the wind, or even one of the nurses pulling a cruel prank. But deep down I knew it wasn't. The following night I told myself I wouldn't even walk past the East Wing corridor. I'd stick to my main rounds, keep my eyes on the lobby, the ER, the cameras. I wasn't going to feed into my paranoia. And for most of the night it worked. Things were calm. I sipped coffee in the security office, half watching the monitors. But at 2:47 a.m. something changed. The East Wing camera flickered. It wasn't unusual for the old system to glitch, but this was different. The screen went completely black, then came back with a distorted feed. The hallway looked darker than usual, grainy, as if the light itself had been drained, and then I saw it. The chains on the double doors were gone. My heart dropped into my stomach. I blinked hard, leaned forward, rubbed my eyes, thinking maybe it was my imagination. But no, the doors stood wide open. And in the middle of the hall, the chair was back. This time, though, it wasn't empty. The same tall figure sat in it just as before. Except now his head was tilted at an unnatural angle, chin to shoulder like his neck had snapped, and he was closer. Much closer to the camera. I stared, frozen, pulse hammering in my ears. Then slowly the figure stood. The camera flickered again, and for a split second, the grainy screen filled with static. When the picture returned, the figure was gone. But the chair was still rocking. That was enough. I jumped from my seat, flashlight in hand, and made for the East Wing corridor. My brain screamed at me not to, but my body moved anyway, like I needed proof that I wasn't losing my mind. When I turned the corner, I stopped dead. The chains were still there. The doors were still shut. Everything looked normal. I crept closer, my light shaking across the doors. The padlock was rusted, unchanged. No signs of tampering, but when I pressed my ear against the cold metal, I heard something. Breathing. Slow, heavy, raspy breathing. Right on the other side. I stumbled back, nearly tripping over my own feet, and ran straight to the security office. I slammed the door shut, locked it, and turned to the monitors. The East Wing feed was black. Not static, not distorted, just completely black. I sat there trembling, watching the clock crawl toward sunrise. When my shift finally ended at 6 a.m., I left the building without a word to anyone. But as I reached my car, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. Tucked under my windshield wiper was a single sheet of paper. On it was a blurry, grainy photo. A photo of me, sitting in the security office, taken from inside the East Wing. I almost didn't go back. After finding that photo on my car, I seriously considered quitting on the spot. No job was worth that kind of terror. But reality has a way of forcing your hand. I had rent due, bills piling up, and no backup plan. So I showed up the next night, telling myself I'd just keep my head down, avoid the East Wing entirely, and ride out the hours until sunrise. That was my plan. But the hospital had other ideas. My shift started quietly enough. I checked the ER cafeteria parking lot. Nothing unusual. When I returned to the security office around 1:30 a.m., though, I noticed something wrong. The East Wing camera, camera 14, was back online, clear as day, and the double doors wide open. I froze, staring at the screen. It wasn't grainy, it wasn't flickering. The feed looked sharper than I'd ever seen it. Too sharp, and standing in the doorway was the figure. Only this time he wasn't shadowy. He wasn't just a vague outline. I could see him. A tall man in a faded hospital gown, skin grayish, eyes sunk deep into dark hollows. His mouth hung slightly open, jaw slack like he was in mid-breath. And he was staring directly at the camera, directly at me. The longer I stared, the more wrong his body looked. His arms were too long, his spine arched unnaturally. He swayed slightly as though the act of standing upright was difficult. I should have looked away. I should have turned the monitor off, but I didn't. I couldn't. And then he moved. Not into the hallway. Not toward the camera, but toward me. On the screen, I watched him step out of the East Wing, down the hall, past each camera, 14, 13, 12, until finally he reached the main corridor. And then, horrifyingly, the next camera lit up. Camera 5, the one just outside the security office. I whipped around, my chest tightening. The hall outside my door was empty, silent. But when I looked back at the monitor, he was there, standing just outside. I could feel it, his presence pressing against the walls. The monitor flickered, then showed him raising one long, gray hand and pressing it flat against my office door. A second later, the real door rattled. I stumbled back, nearly tripping over my chair. The door rattled harder, the metal handle jerking violently. Daisy's warning echoed in my mind. Don't go near the East Wing. I grabbed the radio on my belt, calling for backup, but the line was dead. Static hissed into my ear. The door rattled one final time and then stopped. The silence was deafening. I crept forward, every step heavy, and put my ear against the cold metal. Nothing, just my own panicked breathing. Finally, I turned back to the monitor. He was gone. The East Wing feed showed the doors chained and locked again, as if they'd never been opened. The next morning, I handed in my badge. No explanation, no 2-week notice. Just walked down. That was nearly 4 years ago. I haven't set foot in St. Mary's since. But sometimes, late at night, I'll wake to the sound of footsteps in my hallway. Slow, deliberate, pacing. And when I check my phone, the screen is always black, like a dead camera feed.